Very special thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. When Toriyama got to the Z portion of the story writing the original Dragon Ball manga, he chose to take the series in a new direction by focusing more on science fiction elements as opposed to the mystical grand adventure that he provided prior to. That's why with the first three major arcs of Dragon Ball Z, you've got Goku battling aliens and biomechanical cyborgs, but when we got to the Buu arc, Toriyama went back to basics and began to reincorporate some of the more mystical elements of classic Dragon Ball, demons, magic, and things like that. And that brings us to Babidi, the warlock, the Madoshi of the Buu saga. How does Babidi's dark magic work? Specifically his ability to possess people. On this quickie, we'll talk about it. So Madoshi Babidi is the warlock son of Babidi. We all know that. It's in the series. Although at one point I believe it was quasi-retconned into Babidi being sort of a doppelganger of Babidi, instead of it being an actual biological son produced through, making love. Because let's be honest, who in the world would make love to Babidi? I'm sure there's somebody out there. Anyways, Babidi from the beginning showed an incredible prowess for magic, and it seems to me like he earned or learned that magic from Babidi, whether it be something that was innately inside of him or something that he learned from years and years of reading up or training or whatever. We really don't know. But it's assumed that most of his abilities did come from being the doppelganger of Babidi. This is elaborated on in an interview Toriyama did for the Majin Buu full color manga a few years ago. Now, Babidi and Babidi both have shown a tremendous prowess for having unique dark magic abilities that other characters just don't have. And Babidi and Babidi himself were so strong they were able to challenge the gods. Now, obviously, the gods they're challenging are the Supreme Kais, not quite the Beerus, Whis, and Grand Priest level gods because, well, Toriyama hadn't come up with them yet, but also because they just weren't really relevant in this part of the story. It's because Toriyama didn't come up with them, you know that. But anyways, this dude was pretty dangerous from the beginning despite not being a physically powerful character. He was able to transport people from one place to another. He's able to make people literally combust and explode with his magic, and even summon enemies by chanting pa-pa-ra-pa. Plus, he knows the magical incantation to re-seal Majin Buu back into his ball, which he holds over his head for the entire first third of the arc until Buu finally decides he's had enough and punches his head clean off of his body. But to me, the most interesting aspect of Babidi's sorcery is his ability to control somebody, because it's not just that he's able to mind control and sort of turn any mortal that has evil in his heart into his slave, but he also gives them a huge power boost. How does this dark magic actually work? Now, I did go into great detail on Majin Vegeta in a video I did recently called Majin Vegeta Explained, a deeper look, and definitely check out that video as it does go along with this one, but I want to focus just on Babidi's actual ability. Well, first of all, you have to have evil in your heart for it to work. Now, when they say evil in your heart, they're not talking about being an evil person, just having some sort of sin or something selfish about your character, like Vegeta's thirst and desire to face Goku for purely selfish reasons, or whatever the heck Sapopovich and those guys had inside of them. Obviously with Dabura, he's the king of the demon world, so he's already got some evil inside of him by default. You have to have that, and I do believe that Toriyama took this concept from Judeo-Christian religion about the concept of the devil or Satan and how he's able to manipulate those who are, for lack of a better term, weak-minded. And I think that Toriyama really created Babidi as the Dragon Ball version of the devil. Even though he's really not the devil, he has that sort of seductiveness in his abilities to become that. Except, unlike Emperor Palpatine, he doesn't use his voice and his ability to sort of convince you of things and lying. That's not really what he does. He uses actual magic to tap into the evil in your heart. In the Dragon Ball Daizenshu guidebooks, it states that Babidi is able to use his manipulative abilities by penetrating into the heart crevices of whoever is having an evil thought and then enslaving them. Now, what's interesting is, and I talked about this in way more detail in the Majin Vegeta video, it doesn't work 100% for everybody. You still have a semblance of free will, especially if you are more powerful. We see Dabura rebelling against Majin Buu, who we know was Bibidi's and Babidi's big sort of pet. We see that happen, which wound up getting him killed. And more importantly, we see that Vegeta still has control of his mental faculties. So that all kind of makes sense, because those who are strong-willed can always, repel against sin, so to speak. However, how does that explain the power boost that Babidi can give people? Remember, Sepopovich battled Mr. Satan in the 24th Tenkaichi Budokai and was just a bum. But when Babidi did his magic on him, he suddenly became so strong that he could beat up Mr. Satan's much more powerful daughter with ease. So how does that work? There aren't too many details on this, but what makes the most sense from a real life, I guess, scientific perspective is dopamine and serotonin. If you understand the functionality behind dopamine and serotonin inside of our brains, you know that dopamine is responsible for motivation, it's responsible for happiness, it's responsible for powerful emotion. There are street drugs and prescription drugs that can affect our dopamine levels for people with depression and things like that in the real world. So it's very easy to conceive that this ability that Babidi has, this magic, really just kind of infects your dopamine levels and raises them up. Now, obviously, when your dopamine levels are up, that could also lead to you having a rush of adrenaline. When you have a rush of adrenaline, you actually get stronger. We hear stories of women whose children are in danger getting superhuman strength as mothers and being able to lift cars and do all kinds of crazy superhuman feats. This has happened in the history of mankind several times, and it's because of the ability that dopamine can give to a person to make you somewhat of a superhuman, albeit for a brief time. I think Dragon Ball obviously expounds on that, and it's a fantasy manga, so it's going to be, much more fantastical, but I think that's the core explanation of how Babidi's possession magic actually works. And it seems like Babidi can control a section of your brain, but perhaps not the entire thing, which is why there's still that semblance of free will from anybody who is possessed by him and becomes a Majin or a Destruction King. So to me, that makes the most sense. If you agree with me about the dopamines and if you know about the science, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Once again, I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Building a website can be annoying and challenging, but Squarespace makes it easy for any online entrepreneur or even a hobbyist to create a fully integrated website, including things like linking social media accounts, mailing lists, email campaigns. It even has an audio block feature where you can embed audio from iTunes into your blog, so it supports podcasts as well for all you podcasters out there. Plus, there are tons of pre-built templates and customization options for anyone, and the best part is they have 24/7 support in case you get lost. Try it for free and 10% off your first purchase at squarespace.com/geekdom101.